Hey, sports fans, Larry Eder, Run Blog Run. It's our program, Socialing the Distance. Our guest today is Molly Huddle, two-time Olympic athlete, American record holder for the women's 10,000 meters. Molly, you're in Providence?
Yep, Providence, Rhode Island.
Well, it's great to see you this morning. Thank you for putting up with me. This is the earliest one we've ever done, just so you know. So I really appreciate the whole morning thing. I do have my large mug of coffee, so the caffeine is slowly going into my head. But it's great to see you.
Yeah, great to see you too. Thanks for having me on.
The last time I saw you was at the Olympic trials in end of February. Did you race at all after that?
I didn't do any traveling for races.
Okay.
I think 3 local small meets. So
okay.
Yeah, nothing big.
Okay. Now, you recently set American records at it was 10 miles, 20K in the hour. Is that the correct distances?
10 miles, 15K an hour.
15K an hour. And you broke Nancy Kahn's records back from my era, back from 1981. Had you ever done an hour run before on the track?
No, they're not done as often. And so it was cool, though, to more on distance, knowing you only had an hour to make it count. So, yeah, that was new for me.
Did you have several people that you raced with, or how did that work for you?
There were only 3 official finishers, myself, Anne-Marie Tuxbury, who's from Newport.
Okay.
Kat Rocca, who's another of Ray's athletes, and she paced, just kind of finished.
Uh-huh.
So, yeah, it was a small race.
Well, yeah, my first one I did was in 1976, and I was trying to get under over 10 miles, and there was 4 guys in the race that went over 12 miles. And one of them was Brian Maxwell, the guy that started Power Bar. And I can just remember the pounding of his feet, the sound that you would hear. But they would do it out at SF State. And it was one of those esoteric ones. How did you feel during it? Were you pushing yourself pretty hard?
I felt like it was pretty controlled. I think we tried to decide what I could hold for an hour based on my workouts. We aimed for 5:20. And I hoped I could dip under the last mile. And I actually didn't feel as good when I was running by myself. Like just trying to hit 80s, I'd be over by a second, under by a second. And so it adds up. So it was, and then, it's hard to kick when it's just you and you're not battling someone. That usually brings out the best in me. So yeah, that part was tough to just kind of pretend it was, elevate yourself and dig, but it was still a fun challenge. I thought I'd get bored and it went by fast. I love being on the track, so
cool. That's awesome. Well, congratulations. Now I got to watch you in 2014 in Monaco with your then 5,000 meter American record, and you sure weren't running by yourself in that one. You had a battle through the entire race up until I think if I recall, the last 3 or 4 meters. Tell us about that race.
Yeah, well, that's what you want. A lot of the Diamond League races, they're paced in a way where you go out kind of hard and then you settle. And then at 3K, usually I'm dropped again. And so this time at 3K, I think I had Shannon Robury there, who has the record now. So it was great to have each other to kind of have, that's when you start to hurt. And if you don't to race the last 2K, it's just really hard to push yourself. So that luckily just lined up for me. I think the first time I set the record in Brussels, it was similar. We had a pack that stayed together the whole way rather than out. And so I'm just, usually when someone's with me with a lap to go, instead of panicking, I like it because I'm we're going to run fast. We're going to cut off a lot of time on this last lap. And that's what happened there. And luckily I felt good that day. I was really fit that year. And Monaco is always a fast meet. So when you go there, you just know that's what everyone's aiming for. And you don't really care too much what place you are. You just all want to run fast and get PRs. And so, it was cool everyone was kind of thinking along those lines.
I recall in 2011, you'd come back from Korea, from Daegu, and we were in London, and you're running for Saucony. Mark Bosserdett was there at the time. And I remember you and Mark talking, and he was saying, hey, what are you going to do for the rest of the season? And you go, well, I think I'm going to hang out for a couple of weeks and do a 3,000 and a 5,000. And then I remember us getting the note. I think we got a note from Ray that you had broken the American record. And I just put that cover of you breaking the American record up on RunBlogRun this weekend as one of my inspirational things for daily training. So I'll send you the picture. It's kind of a fun one.
Yeah.
The 10,000 meter record, your 30:13, is pretty darn incredible. Was that a perfect race for you?
I felt really good, but I wouldn't say it was perfect because, again,
okay.
We went out really hard, and then I was alone after 4K, which is always hard because I had someone to kind of cling on to and drag me through. I suppose the perfect race is always when you're paced by someone. So those aren't ever championship races.
Yeah.
But I think I did do a good job of trying to stay focused and just trying to not slow down too much, knowing I went out like a little too hard for me. And it was such a fast day for everyone. I just remember, I went through the 5K in 14:55, which is probably at that time, it was like my third fastest 5K ever. And I was just like, this should feel way harder. And it doesn't. It still is hard. I was like, I can't keep this up for 10K, but I was like, I didn't think I could do that for a split.
Yeah.
So everyone just felt good, was running fast. I tried to it was chaos. We were lapping people. So I was like, make sure you know where you are because you're lapping people. You could get lapped. Like they're setting the record up in front of you. So just like Betsy Sano was in front of me and I was like, as long as Betsy doesn't pass you, you haven't been lapped, just try and catch her. And the two of us were just kind of in no woman's land. So we finished and we were like, that was insane.
Yeah, I remember I pulled my notes up from that race and I watched, I put an exclamation point by 14:55 because that season, I think you'd run earlier about a 14:52, 53 maybe. And I knew you were really fit. But it seemed like it's 6K and 7K. You were kind of trying to keep yourself in control because you knew people might start coming back. Do you get that sense during a race?
I had hoped more women would come back. I think I only ended up passing probably 2 in the end. I was hoping maybe like 5 women would come back. But I was kind of looking to old races. You really never know what's going to happen.
Sure.
You just never know who shows up. You may know all their times and all their PR, all their accolades, but they could be a different person that day. I had never run 30 low before. So I was looking ahead and I was like, I don't know. Logic says some women should come back, but they might not. I just keep pressing. I just knew I couldn't slow down too much or else everyone would pass me. So I just was focusing on my own splits at that point.
With your focus on the marathon now, do you think you can get a PB at the 10,000 still?
I don't know if I could get in 30 low shape, but I ran 30, 50 something when we were getting ready.
Yep.
And that wasn't a perfect day. So I do think I could run, like 30, 30, 30, 40 range, which I do think is good enough to.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
Possibly, depending on the field, be top 4, top 5 again at Worlds. So, that keeps me going. But never say never. Yeah, I don't know. It's tough. I think I'm looking more towards like a PR in the marathon than a PR in the 10K at this point.
I want to get to the marathon in a bit, but I wanted to ask you a question. This is one I've asked everybody, and it's I'm going to try to do it. I'm going to do it very nicely. I want to talk to you about whereabouts. And I've talked to Tiana Bartoletto, and you may know Tiana, and she is never at a loss for words. And I talked to Sam Kendricks and Sandy Morris and Ryan Krauser, and everybody I've talked to has just said, look, whereabouts is the price you pay for being an elite athlete. Is keeping track of your daily whereabouts for USADA and WADA a difficult thing?
I don't think it's difficult. I mean, I've been in the pool. I've maybe been in the pool, 12 years, something like that. So for me, it's automatic. I'm like, if I'm going to be more than an hour away, I got to update. Now, I don't get tested as much as someone who's number 1 in the world. I think you get tested once a month or very frequently.
Yeah.
so you have more chances to miss a test. I'll say, like, I don't find them intrusive. I wish there was an easier way to do it, but it's something I've managed more or less fine during my career. I think I could see how you could just be bad at paperwork and record keeping, like just bad stuff. But I just think if you're that good of an athlete, you're number one in the world type of an athlete, you know you're going to get tested once a month. It's on you to keep proving that you're clean. And so if you need help, with that, like maybe you could like outsource that to like a friend or family member to be like, hey, remind me to do this, or hey, can you help update sometimes, or whatever. There's like ways around it, because yes, I could see how someone would say it's an annoying sort of record keeping type of thing, but the cost of not doing it right is like your whole reputation in your career.
Yeah.
So it's just something you gotta, nail it down as a young athlete and just get it to be automatic, like something you just do automatically, think about automatically. Like when you're packing your suitcase, or if you're packing your purse, like to go somewhere, or if you're packing up your car, you should also do that.
How did you meet Ray Tracy?
I met Ray, I guess I knew of him in college because when Notre Dame was in the Big East, when I was in school, they were in the Big East with Providence. And so we raced Providence College probably, when you factor in conference meets and national meets, 10, 12 times a year. And when I was in Notre Dame, I was coming up against like Mary Cullen, Kim Smith all the time.
Sure.
So I just knew, I was always focusing on them. So I knew who Ray was, but I didn't actually talk to him until my coach suggested I go there after school because he thought it would be a good fit. And he knew Ray from the conference, and he set up a meeting with us. And so, right away, I think I talked to only 3 coaches when I was planning to leave Notre Dame and go somewhere else. And Ray was the most welcoming. He was like, I'd love to have you. You'd work great with Mary. Like, and so that's all I wanted, was that glimmer of like, I think you can be good and I would like to coach you. So that prove anything to him. So, right away I was like, that's something I'm looking for.
Now, Ray Flynn has been your manager and agent for how long?
Oh gosh, since I graduated. So yeah, I guess we're on year 13 as well.
Wow. Does he ever give you advice before races?
He's encouraging, nothing specific. He would, if I'm going for a record, he knows, and he kind of knows what the pace is in the race. So he'll sometimes say, hey, like, do this or that. But mostly Ray Tracy is the one that gives me the plan. And it's always a loose plan because we all know races are unpredictable. So it's like, decide on your feet if something changes.
Does Ray get nervous before races, Ray Tracy?
I think he does. Yes, I've seen him, especially when I'm, if I'm like maybe not 100% fit yet or something like that. He's really seems nervous to me, and I've seen him nervous at like NCAA cross country too.
Okay, yeah, I would think so. I want to talk about your training philosophy. In a normal year, a non-pandemic year, what is your in base training? What is your typical mileage like?
Well, if it's track, we're getting ready for the kind of like early winter base mileage is, 90 to 100 miles a week. And we're doing, working up to longer tempo runs, getting in some track work that's not super fast, but just getting that volume in. And
what's a track workout like that you do? What's a typical track workout during that build-up?
They don't change a lot. Mostly just the paces change. So like 8x K is a big one.
Okay.
1.5 mile repeats. I would probably do 4 of those. Half. And, I'll go probably 3.5, maybe 4 months without racing, just doing that work. And then I'll be able to race a lot off of that. I can race really frequently if I get in that chunk of like base work.
Does your training give you confidence?
Oh yeah, that's the number one. Like I know exactly where I need to be and what it needs to feel like to do certain things, and so that drives everything. So it's like, okay, if these workouts go well, most of the time, I always have a few bad ones. I know I'm ready. If they aren't going well, I'm like, hey, this might not this might not work out. So yeah, it tells us a lot at this point. We kind of know we've learned how to read my workouts pretty well. So
What workout do you do? Is there a key workout that you do that you really like?
well, I like 400s, but they don't really tell me anything usually.
Yeah.
But I just think they're fun.
Yeah.
One that tells me I'm ready is if I can handle, like, my weakest area are the long reps. So if I can do a good workout of, like, mile and a half or a 2 mile repeat type of long rep, then I know I'm ready. Because usually those are my worst ones.
How long have you been training with Emily Sisson?
Emily, since she came out of school, so what year was that? 2013, 2014? I lose track.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I would see her and occasionally like cross over with her her last 2 years of school when she ran the 12K the year she didn't have.
Sure. Yeah.
So we did kind of like cross over a little bit.
Now, during the pandemic year, were you guys able to were you ladies able to train together?
We did not. We hardly trained together this year because we started on pace. We got 2 weeks into our marathon buildup for the trials, and I had an injury, and so then that got us off course because I kind of came back a few weeks later and we were off. And then after the trials, things had blown up pretty much 2 weeks later with the pandemic, and so we were both on break. And I actually did stay in Phoenix until about June, which is longer than we do. But she was on a break, I was on a break, and then I left. And then, yeah, we're like totally looking forward to getting somewhat back to normal in January this year. Because I think we probably trained together the least this year than we ever have.
Wow. Talk to me about the experience in Atlanta. Did it go well for you at any point in the race? Were you feeling good at any point in the race, or was it a tough situation?
I'd say, I mean, I know it was a hard course, so it wasn't going to feel like good per se, but I've run hard courses and it just didn't feel normal to me. I think I just must have had something somewhat off to begin with. I think since I had the ankle injury in December and I just didn't feel good basically since then. So I'm wondering like there was just some inefficiency going on, and I actually got sick about a couple days after the trials. So I'm like, who knows, brewing that whole time, but I did feel kind of like achy and not like it was hard to run. We were running tactical, and I know it was really windy, but it felt hard to even stay on the tactical pace to me. So not typical for me. So I'd say it was just one of those bad races. And I've had parts of marathons that feel like that, but usually not from like mile 1 onward.
Sure. You're going to focus now for 2021 on the 10,000 meters. Is that correct?
Yeah, the focus, I think my best shot's the 10K at this point. So
when you found out that the Olympics had been postponed, what were your feelings?
Well, I was like 1% relieved because I just felt like we still weren't kind of fixing things from the trials, and I was ready to just steamroll right into the track. I didn't even really take much of a break. I took maybe 4 days off. Was trying to do some 200s right after that and get right back into it. So I was a little relieved I had more time, but then I just didn't realize how serious it was all going to be. Like, I didn't realize that everything else would get canceled and it would really be a lost year, more or less. So I think maybe it started a little bit of panic with that side of things. And it's just hard being an older athlete, knowing you have to wait another year. Your body's not really going in the best direction after 35. So I definitely think I'm doing okay, but you don't like to waste a year at this age.
Are you still enjoying the training?
I think this year I was like trying to find a way to enjoy it. I definitely am someone who thrives off racing. So that made it feel like a grind sometimes, for sure. But I'm hoping, we can get more, I prefer sort of more higher stakes races. I guess I just to that, and that gets me excited to train. So I'm hoping for 2021 we can get stuff back on the calendar that'll get me like excited to get out there and put in a lot of work.
I've seen you at least a half a dozen times at the Peyton Jordan, and wherever I'm at in the world, I come in for that meet. What is it about that meet that makes it special for you?
I think that meet is just, it's a great place. It's kind of like Monaco. You know, you're going to run fast. You know, you have a good field who also is focused on running fast. And you just don't worry too much about the place where you end up. So you don't have a fear of, you know, just seeing where you are that day and really pushing it. And it's also usually launching your track season. And usually there's just not that many 10Ks out there either. So if there's a good, like literally anywhere in the world, it's just there's not enough fast 10K opportunities. And so I think it's become just really important for the 10K runners.
I've watched you battle Sarah Hall a few times. In fact, I have a series of pictures of you. It's one of my favorite. I got to admit, that cross-country race, maybe it's 8 years ago, 9 years ago now. You guys like dueled to the last centimeter. When she ran the 222 in London, did that inspire you?
Oh, definitely. Yeah, her career is really inspiring. You know, obviously, we overlap in age a little bit, and it's just been cool to see her get better every marathon because she had bad ones too in the marathon, and so it's just good to see it that like the progression is still going upward even though you have a few steps back, because it's easy doing the marathon yourself to be like, oh, maybe I'm just not a marathoner, and it's like, well, maybe I just need to forget about that bad one and keep going. So she definitely reminds you of that. And I like rooting for Sarah. We've raced each other a lot, and I respect how like tough she is, and she's outkicked me probably more than anyone actually when I look back on it, if you count NCAA results and professional results.
Well, okay, so I'm going to go back. I think it was 2014, that 5,000 meters at the U.S. Championships, where with 50 meters to go, you were a little bit behind, and you won. And there's a couple wonderful pictures. I have this I call it my holy of holies, and I have walls up with some of them. You've got 2 pictures up there, so that's pretty good. What do you remember from that race? What did you tell yourself with 50 meters to go that you wanted to beat Shannon Roberry?
I remember I led a lot of the race. I think I started leading after 3 or 4 laps.
Yep.
And we had dropped everybody by the last mile, roughly. I think maybe just Marielle was hanging on there. And I knew she was going to go around me because she's a 1,500 meter runner. And I was kind of just like, okay, you got to drop her early. You got to drop her early. And then when she went, I was like, oh no. But then I was like, I have more left. Like, get around her. Like I kind of, usually I'm like, kind of like tying up and I'm just like reaching for something and my legs are giving out the last 100, but I was like, no way. Like, I know I can pass her. Like, I feel like I have a lot more left. And I usually am not feeling like that. But before the race, I was really nervous. I didn't feel super great that week. And so I was like, I have no idea if this is going to be a disaster or a good one. And like, as the last mile unfolded, I was like, okay, like it's there. I know it's there. So yeah, that was definitely thrilling. Like, I'm not usually someone who catches a 1,500 meter runner.
You have made an art form of doubling at the 5 and the 10. How do you approach it? Is there a mental approach to it? Do you just, after you've done the 10, do you just shut that down and then focus on the 5, or what do you tell yourself?
I think the only way I can do that is if the 10 is my main focus. And so I feel less pressure, and it's just, I approach the 5K as like, oh, it's just fun because your main job is done. So I think that's the way I've approached it. I think I will say I got a little turned off to the double after 2017 when it was like 26 hours between events or something.
Yeah.
That didn't feel so great. But it was still fun. It just was like not fun to not have your normal kicking power because you're a little sore. But it's, definitely. I love racing and I love the 5K. I think I moved up to the 10 out of necessity. So for me, it's always just been like, as long as it's not my main event and I make the team in something, you just feel free and able to just race for fun.
What's the biggest lesson you've learned in the marathon?
Oh gosh, I feel like I'm still learning the lessons in the marathon, but I think the lesson is like, you're often not going to have those head-to-head races. It's going to be you out there. navigating your own energy levels and your own limits, and you just see where everyone ends up at the end of the day. It's really it's a different sport. It's unlike the half and the 10, and where you're riding the line, but you're with someone the whole way, and you can't really make a mistake that will take you out of the finishing the way you can in a marathon.
Sure.
So it's just learning, like, it's really you racing yourself, racing 26.2 more so than the field.
If you weren't doing a distance event in track and field, is there any event that you admire that you would like to be good at?
I would love to do the 400 if I was fast enough. That looks like the best.
Cool. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Did you do relays at Notre Dame?
Not in high school. I did, not in college. No.
Okay. Now, were any of your family runners?
My dad was a distance runner. He actually ran at Notre Dame. He was class of 1969, and he.
Oh, wow, cool! I thought I'd heard that story. I was just curious about that. Now, you knew Joe Piani fairly well then too, while you were there, right?
He was the men's coach when I was there. Yeah. I was by Tim Connolly, and then Coach Piani was, I think, like the technical head coach of the program.
Did Tim go to Notre Dame?
Yep, he did.
Yeah, I ran against Tim. The National Catholic Championships in 1980 and 81. And the guys took us out for a couple of beers afterwards, you know. And
you ran at Wisconsin, is it?
I went to Santa Clara University, and I was head coach there my senior year, and youngest coach in the country. I coached for 2 years there, and then went on to Runner's World. But Joe started the National Catholic meet. We would come out, and Chuck Aragon won my first year, and Joe Domek. He was the coach, longtime coach at Marquette. But I knew Tim. Tim was a really good guy. Tim gave me some advice about trying to. I wanted to get there 4:30 in the mile, and so he gave me some suggestions. You know, nice. I ran 4:22, but I was last, 18th in the race. But you know, hey, it happens. And that's one of the things I wanted to ask you about too. You know, you'll go to road races and you'll have spectacular finishes, and then you go to the track. You know, and Marty LaCory, the former American record holder of the 5,000 and an Olympian in 68 when he was 19, said that road racing is rock and roll and track and field is the classical symphony. What are your feelings? Is track and field still supreme for you, or is the feeling about I really want to show what I can do at the marathon?
Yeah, I like that quote is spot on, I think. I like both. I feel most comfortable on the track just because I think that's where I started. Mm-hmm. And so that's, all my strategies are based on track racing as far as like counting down the laps, measuring splits. I'm just really, I like all that data. And the roads, you're a little more feeling things out, but the atmosphere is amazing at road races. And so, yeah, I like both. I'd say my stride and just my skills are better on the track, probably. But as a distance runner, I'm lucky because there's a place for us on both. If you're a 5:10 half person, you can really do anything all year. And you can have a long career too. So I feel pretty lucky that the roads are there and that Ray has kind of mixed it in for us so that we never had to make a big jump. We were always comfortable with road races.
All right, I'm going to name 5 to 7 athletes now, and you're allowed 3 to 5 words to describe them, okay?
Gosh, okay.
We'll start with Emily Sisson.
Okay, I knew Emily would be in here.
Yes.
So I tried to think about it. I would say marathoner.
Okay.
Tough. And nervous.
Okay. Sarah Hall.
Okay. Sarah, I would say gritty. Never gives up. I know that's not one word.
That's okay. That's cool. You're in the rules,
And ageless.
Shannon Roberry.
Shannon, I would say professional, poised, and fast, speedy. She's got the wheels.
Sally Kipiego.
Sally, I would say she's calming. She's, let's see. She's clutch. Like when it's a big meet, like when it's the Olympics or a championship, like she rises. So I'd say clutch. And I'd say down to earth. Another multi-word word.
Shelby Houlihan.
Shelby is a beast.
Yeah, I agree with that. Yeah.
The future. And she's fun also.
Shalane Flanagan.
Oh God, I'm like, I hope no one watches these.
Yeah, they do. Just so you know, and I get notes, but people get a kick out of it. This is one of the things that they say, "Oh, Larry, you got to do more of these." So that's why I do it each time. And part of it is, Emily was like, "Larry, why didn't you tell me about this beforehand?" Oh no, it was great. She was really good. But it's kind of like you're trying to think about all these different feelings you've got about these people, and how do you put them in there?
Well, yeah, and we know them like personally and professionally. So.
Yeah.
So it's weird. Okay, Shalane, I would say, is, let's see. She's the queen. She's fearless. And she is just like excellence. Like excellence.
Okay, cool. Last one, Des Linden.
Des is marathoner.
Yeah.
She's consistent, and I feel like Des is Zen. Her approach is Zen to running.
Cool. I like that. I like that a lot. How would you describe, okay, this isn't a 5-word description. Describe your relationship with Ray Tracy. Is he your advisor now? Did you go like from coach to advisor to friend? How do you describe it? You've been with this person for, this. So my take on Ray, and I've watched him a few times, is you're doing a workout, and he'll just walk over gently and kind of go, "I don't think you're feeling good today." So, does he get involved in the workouts? Would he let you finish it, or how would he do it?
He's pretty like protective of like if you don't sound good or look good, he would probably pull you or shorten it or move it to another day. Yeah, I'd say advisor is a good word. I think the older you get, the more he knows like you're kind of discussing things together rather than he's telling you what to do. Pretty much after you graduate from college, I think he knows like, hey, I'm just telling you my perspective and you can listen to it or not.
Sure.
But he's been right a lot of times, so I've learned to do him most of the time. Yeah, he's just got a wealth of like experience. He's coached a lot of athletes to really high levels, and yeah, that's really valuable. And he's learned kind of what works for me. Every athlete's a little different, and so he's got to figure that out. And so that's really valuable that we have that nailed down. So yeah, definitely director is a good word, I think, because he also helps me choose goals based on where I'm at. He'll say, hey, I think like you should go for this or try for that. And I'd be like, oh, that's a good idea. So yeah, I think it's been good. I like to have a little bit of say in it. So that's nice.
Cool. May I ask your husband's name?
Kurt.
I've met Kurt at I believe it was at the Foot Locker one year, and then at a couple of maybe at a national one time. Does he train with you every day?
No, not as much. He does still hop into workouts if I don't have anyone to work out. But usually just bits and pieces of it. So, yeah, he's great for workouts. We never really run easy runs together much because it's just different paces. So we get, yeah.
You have a professional life and you have a personal life. Do you have a wall wall may be the wrong word. Do you have a filter between your personal life and your professional life? Do you guys talk about running all the time, or you actually talk about other things, regular life and stuff like that?
I think, it's definitely blended because running at this level is such a lifestyle, but we do talk probably more about other stuff than running. But he's coaching athletes himself too, so like
Cool.
talking about like workouts and ideas and races, and we both are running nerds, and so we check a lot of results. But for sure, it's like important to have that person in your life.
Yeah, yeah.
Because you're so hyper focused. We're very
Sure.
hyper focused on running, so it is nice to just be like, hey, let's just not talk about it.
In 2022, there's going to be a World Championships. There's going to be a European Championships. There's going to be a Commonwealth Games, and if Tokyo doesn't happen, we could have Tokyo during that year. How do you think? What are you thinking about for 2021? Are you allowing yourself to think about 2021 yet, or are you just kind of doing the Zen thing?
Pretty much right now, I'm just thinking of 2021 summer, making the Olympic team, and that's number one. And so everything works back from there. And I know that sounds really far away, but like really, the plan starts pretty soon for that. So definitely that. And then, depending on what happens, at the end of June, assuming the meet happens, then I make a whole new set of decisions as far as, do I do a marathon? What's next? And then after that fall, there's like a whole new set of, can I go for the World Champs team? I'd love to compete for the first time in my life at US Champs. So it's like, we're taking these chunks and just adjusting depending on what happens every couple months.
That would be 6 World Championship teams for you and 3 Olympic teams. That's pretty damn impressive, Molly Huddle. I'm kind of impressed with you too. What was the toughest team to make?
The toughest team to make? Oh gosh, that's a good question. Probably the 5K team maybe in 2013 was pretty close, because we had Jenny. Jenny didn't take a spot, but Jenny Simpson was in that race at USA's, and that kind of changes the race. And Shannon, I think, was also running that year. So we had a lot of 1,500 women there. So that was, for me, I was nervous about that. That was hard. I wasn't as fast as them over the last couple laps.
Well, you've now survived 39 minutes with me, Molly Huddle. This is probably the longest conversation we've had since 2011. Well, actually, after in 2014, when you guys are so kind, you and Ray stopped, and I was standing on a street trying to get a taxi, and you actually gave me a ride back to the hotel, which I was always appreciative of. And I found that little interview. It's like 7 minutes, so I'm going to actually put it up in the next week or so, because you were actually pretty pumped up after your 5,000.
Yep, I think we were the last people out of that stadium because it.
Yes, it was. Thank you, as always, for being a great interview, and you're really good for the sport. Enjoy your Thanksgiving with your hubby, and if you got some friends and stuff to do it with, but stay safe. And thank you for the interview. We will have it up in the next week or so. There'll be clips and stuff too, and I will send those to you. Okay.
Okay, yeah, thanks. Have a good Thanksgiving yourself.
All right, this is Larry Eder with RunBlogRun, Socialing the Distance. We've been with the one and only Molly Huddle. I have to admit, one of my favorites. And you have a great Thanksgiving. Molly, thank you very much. You did awesome.
Thanks, Larry.
Hey, sports fans, it's Larry Eder with RunBlogRun. This is Socialing the Distance in the epilogue. And we just featured one of my favorite athletes, Molly Huddle. And I've known Molly since she was in high school and ran 10 minutes for 2 miles. It was pretty impressive in her day. And then she went to Notre Dame. And then she has been running as a professional athlete for Saucony and coached by Ray Tracy. Her coach in college, I recall running against when he was at Notre Dame and I was at Santa Clara. We got to meet. He was a nice guy. And she obviously developed quite well. And Ray Tracy has been her coach for almost 13 years. And Ray is pretty old school. And he has obviously helped Molly Huddle develop into, one time she had the American record for 5,000 meters. I think she did it twice. but her final best at the 5,000 was 14:42.64, set back in 2014 in Monaco, where she battled Shannon Roberry down the stretch. It was a beautiful race. And I was always appreciative of Shannon. I wanted to talk, or Shannon and Molly that night. I got a ride back with Molly and her manager, Ray Flynn, in the last taxi coming out of the Stade Louis. And we got to chat. And I will find that archived audio tape and we will get it up because Molly was rather effusive that night. In 2000, was it 2007? She ran 30:13:17. And for some reason, I'm thinking it was in the Olympic year. But I will have to double check on that. That's her best for 10,000. It's the current American record. She went through the 5,000 in that race in 14:55. And I went back and looked at my notes, and I had an exclamation point by that because I think she'd run 14:53 or 54 that season so far. The thing is when Molly is on and when she's in track shape, she's just, she's really tough. Someone wrote and called her the doe-eyed warrior one time. I think that she is, she knows how to compartmentalize well. She can have fun and be relaxed off the track. When she gets on the track, she's a warrior. It's one of the reasons why I love women's track and field. The athletes know how to shut it off and shut it on and turn it on. Her PB in the marathon is 2:26:33. That was in London. I think she can run much faster. I've always thought she could break 2:20. I hope she gets the chance to do that. And her half marathon PB is 67:25. Over the last 5 or 6 years, she's been training with Emily Sisson, and I think they're both good for each other, and they encourage each other. They're different parts of their career, but I think hopefully we'll see Molly for a few more years. Right now, she wants to make the 10,000 meter team for 2021. That would be her third Olympic team. She's made 2 so far in 2012 and 2016. She's also made world championship teams in 2011, 2013, 2015, 2017, 2019. So by my calculations, that's 5 world championship teams, 2 Olympic teams, and I think we could see her possibly make 7 world championship teams. We'll keep our fingers crossed, and I don't want her to get mad at me. Today we talked about her coaching relationship with Ray Tracy, which has gone from coach to director to advisor. Again, Ray's old school. His athletes love him. Other coaches respect him. He's just a good guy, and it's nice to see her with such a good coach. She's had some challenges. The Olympic trials marathon was rather difficult. She just didn't feel good from the first mile. And we'll see her back with the marathon. Marathon is an event where you learn a lot from your mistakes and from your failures, if you want to call them that. Personally, I remember it took me about 9 to figure out how to negative split as a citizen runner. And Molly seems to learn something new each time. Again, with her stride and her strength, and if she can stay healthy, I think she can break 2:20. But you got to have the right course and the right day and the perfect storm, as we might call it. I had her talk about, I gave her several athletes: Emily Sisson, Sarah Hall, Shelby Houlihan, Shalane Flanagan, Des Linden, among others. And she made the point of how we know these people outside of racing as well as in racing, and affection for all of them. And I think that's really cool. I think it's something to learn in this time when so many people are divided over political beliefs and philosophical beliefs. I've always thought that when someone believes differently than me, I'd love to sit down and talk to them so I can learn about things. But we seem to be in this time where we've balkanized religion, politics, athletics, and I think it's a sad state of affairs. But Molly shows us that you don't have to do that. You can learn. You can have fun. And I asked her a little bit about separating from personal and running, and how her and her hubby do it. And he's a coach. I've met him a couple times, and but obviously this is the way they make a living, and so it's got to be a big part of their life. But also you got to get things separated, because of otherwise you lose your mind. And in this time of a pandemic, unfortunately, she hasn't been able to train much with Emily, who she trains with a lot during the year. And I hope they get together again and train in January. And I hope everybody stays safe. But Molly Huddle is a joy to interview. And one is that she has a different perspective on things. And it's the kind of the example of Alan Silito's Loneliness of the Long Distance Runner. It's a novella. Read it. See the movie with Tom Courtenay. Fantastic. Late 1950s, early 1960s movie, but it gets our stuff. Why we run, what calls us to running, what makes us want to take that second or two off our personal best, and why it is why you can, when you talk to someone for 5 minutes, you can always tell if they're a runner. Molly Huddle, you can tell if she's a runner, and she's an elite athlete. And since 2011, at the very least, she has been at the top in the U.S. She is a wonderful leader in women's running and in clean sport. And I feel honored to know her and to speak to her, and thankful, like I'm thankful to all the athletes for them interviewing us. Molly Huddle, or me interviewing them, excuse me. Molly Huddle, thank you very, very much for talking to me today. Mike Deering, thank you very, very much for putting up with my shenanigans and trying to manage me, because I know it's a 12-step program and we're on the first, but it's a journey. And these interviews, which Michael and Adam suggested me start doing, they're behind Socialing the Distance as well as Athletics Chat. And my dear brother's behind getting me on RunBlogRun. Without that, I would have never done any of this stuff. You know, I didn't even believe in the blog stuff when I started in 2000. Well, he tried to get me to do it in 2004 and 5, and I was just like, man, I can't handle this shit right now. So it took me to 2007, and very soon I noticed that all the people that I was trying to talk to, making 100 phone calls a day, were reading my blog. And it's been that way ever since. It's just built. And the blog, the interviews, the Zoom interviews, I think, are fantastic. You get to learn about people. I still do text interviews and content stuff, audio stuff. All that adds up to give you, our dear readers and viewers, a little more insight into running and to help you enhance your relationship, your personal relationship with running. That's what it's all about. So thank you again for checking out our interviews. Thank you to Molly Huddle. Thank you to Mike Deering for producing. This is Larry Eder, Socialing the Distance. We featured Molly Huddle, and this is the epilogue, which I claimed to Mike there'll be 5 minutes, but it never is. This may be right under 10, so you're lucky today. But get out your sack lunch, watch a couple of these things, and if you like us, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, like us on all three, because you know what? The more people that like us, the little more we can get paid, the more kind of things we can do, and then I can pay my bills, and Mike can pay his bills, and Adam can pay his bills, and it's a beautiful, enlightened, capitalistic relationship, okay? And then if you love us, subscribe on the YouTube. We really need you to subscribe there. We get tons of people watching our videos and listening to our audios, but we want more to subscribe, and it would be really helpful. You're supporting our media group, which really means a lot. Okay? Larry Eder, RunBlogRun, signing off. Enjoy your week.